Coming to you from Orange County, California, this is the JuggLife podcast with Max Ada and Chad Wesley Smith. Hey everybody, Chad Wesley Smith here. We're bringing you another classic episode of the JuggLife this week. This week's episode is going to be number 59, 8 Lessons from 8 Years of Juggernaut. We're putting this up because now we're making it 9 lessons from 9 years of Juggernaut. I started Juggernaut in 2009. In May of 2009, I graduated college. In about June 1st, I started writing what I thought was a business plan. By July 1st, we had pitched that business plan and gotten some investment. August 1st, got warehouse space, and then September 1st, we were open. So at this point, 9 years ago, I was in the thick of it, really just excited and would have never imagined then that things would have gotten to the point they are now, where we get to travel around the world, coaching seminars and helping so many people achieve their goals. So if I had one lesson to add to last year's podcast about this, I think it would be that you need to have a clearly defined value system and clearly communicate those values and expectations to the people around you. And if the people around you, aren't adhering to that or aren't, rising to those expectations, that you need to be swift and decisive in, rectifying that, however it may be. And this past year has definitely been a time of change and transition in some ways. We moved out of our physical space, which was just a decision by me to be able to focus on the core of our business, which is content creation and online coaching, as well as creating all the books. But it was still a tough decision in some ways, but it's definitely worked out for the best. We had some turnover in the team, which certainly points of what I'm talking about here, and being swift and decisive would have been beneficial there. And in regards to creating a clearly defined value system, one of my favorite episodes of the JuggLife we've ever gotten to record is with Cal rugby coach Jack Clark, who just has so much wisdom about building team culture, and it extends from sports teams to companies to everything else. And the things that he talked about, particularly expecting everyone to lead and loving conditionally, I think are things that I've really taken with me in regards to the direction of Juggernaut and coaching lifters. So enjoy the rest of the episode. 8 lessons from 8 years of Juggernaut. Now you have a 9th lesson for the 9th year of Juggernaut. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you next week. Hey everybody, what is up? Chad Wesley Smith here, bringing you another episode of the JuggLife podcast. I am joined today by miraculous Max Montana.
Thank you.
You're a miracle. You're such a special guy.
Modern miracle.
Yes. Miracle of modern medicine?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
As always, thank you for joining us here on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you may be listening from. This episode is a special one. It's we're right about celebrating 8 years of Juggernaut Training Systems, the 8-year anniversary. So we're going to be talking about 8 important lessons that, Max hasn't been here for 8 years, but I have. But 8 lessons from the last 8 years. Don't hold us to real strict dates on here, because they're more just eight important business training life lessons that we've learned in this time. Today's episode is brought to you by Hot Pockets and Hack Squats. It's a lifestyle, and that came to us from Mr. Murray Lifestyle on YouTube. You think
Mr. Murray Lifestyle? Is that
all he does is make lifestyle brands up?
I was going to think maybe he is a lifestyle.
Well,
the Mr. Murray Lifestyle. I'm kind of curious what that is.
Everyone, it's apparently Hot Pockets and Hack Squats.
He's very overweight, except his legs are jacked. Huge quads.
You think he eats them at the same time?
Well, he's got one in each hand while he's holding the hack squat, and he can just go rep for rep with Hot Pockets.
That was a pretty. If you saw on our Instagram, Jacob Highs.
Well, yeah, that was really good, huh?
140 kilos. So he cleans 140, and Jacob's a 77 kilo.
140
guy.
is a pretty big clean and jerk for him.
Yeah.
I mean, the best like 155, 150 maybe.
So he cleans 140, he stands it up. His buddy hands him a bowl of crunch berries.
Oh, crunch berries, yeah.
He takes a couple bite of the crunch berries, like with his hands out supporting the bar on his shoulders. But he takes the bowl back, resets his hands.
Yeah. Sticks it.
Jerks it. I mean, if his best is 155, 140
That's
is
90%.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's not easy.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah.
And if you're gonna do stupid tricks for Instagram, you better make them pretty fucking good.
They got to be extra good. Yeah. You can't just do some bullshit.
So let's just get right into it. Hopefully, a lot of good information to be shared and some good insights. So our first lesson from the last 8 years, and this is going to be particularly applicable to anyone wanting to work in the fitness business, whether that's being a coach, owning a gym, whatever it may be, is that the fitness business is just as much business as it is fitness, if not even more business than it is fitness. I remember being a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, much more youthful, exuberant-looking young man than I am now. In the summer of 2009, June, July 2009, when I was writing what I thought at the time was a business plan for a place called Juggernaut Training Systems, and just thinking this is gonna be great. I'm gonna coach and I'm gonna lift, and it's everyone's just gonna come and lift, and then there'll be some money that shows up.
Everyone's just gonna come and lift and money shows up. It's a trap that I think every one of us has fallen into.
Yeah, and then you go on to actually do business, and I'm sure that this is got to be true for anyone who's an entrepreneur and works in the field that they're passionate about, art, fitness, whatever it may be. They think that it's all the fun part, and there's a lot of the not fun part. There's a lot of taxes and cold calling and marketing and all that kind of stuff, and all the bills that come along with things. Plus there's when you get into the physical location, it's the wall painting and toilet cleaning and all that kind of stuff.
All the little shit. It's also all the the constant just mistakes and failures, and that was a waste of money there. That was a waste of money there. Like those things are huge. You don't realize it when you're doing it because it all seems like I feel like the anxiety of you got to keep going because you're the one that is responsible for the not foods put on your table. There is no downtime where you're like, oh, I'm off work at 5 and just go home and you're done. I mean, it's just 24 hours a day. So there's a lot of that feeling this is a good idea. This is going to work out this way in many different aspects, big and small, where it just doesn't go. Things don't just go the way you want them to go. They go the way they go, and you have to figure out whether that's going to be beneficial or not, right? I think that's tough.
Yeah, and both of us have, I guess, unique education backgrounds for this, profession.
Yeah.
My degree is in history. Max's is in hard knocks, School of Hard Knocks. But if we had the Strength in Academia podcast a couple weeks ago with Dr. Mike and Mankini, talking about the best way to pursue coaching education through the university system. And that's great. Do that. That's an important, it's still the most important part of working as a coach. You got to be able to coach.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do that. If you know how to market and stuff, that's great as well. You could probably find someone to handle that part of things for you, but it would be worthwhile along the way as you take your anatomy, physiology, exercise, sport physiology classes and do great internships and stuff. Throw in a business class along the way. Throw in a marketing class along the way. Understand a bit about taxes and profit and losses statements and all that kind of shit.
If I could give advice to somebody who started, I would say everybody's the best coach in the world because they're all going to say that. You can't just sell the best coaching or the best this and that, right? Everybody's all got that. But get, like the Chad's saying, like, I would have taken business class. I would have learned how to do taxes right off the bat. I would have learned how to do accounting. I would have spent way more time learning how to do like writing, video editing, all those things initially, because that's 99% of what goes on, right?
Yeah, and if it's not you doing it yourself, if you're going into business with people, two points to that effect. Even if they're your best friends, make an operating agreement.
Yeah.
Figure out what can happen in the worst case scenario. Have that awkward discussion up front, rather than having an incredibly awkward, shitty discussion down the road about it. It's a much better way to do things, and also be strategic about partnerships that you're creating.
Yeah.
If you're a powerlifter and your friend's a powerlifter and your other friend's a powerlifter and well, guess what? You can only have a powerlifting business at that point. It's probably not going to be great if it's just training. That's all we know about. But if you have one person who's the coach and one person who's the marketer and one person who's the back end business accounting type of stuff, then you have a great relationship where people can kind of support each other and fill in the gaps that other people have in their knowledge. So I think that is point number one, that the fitness business is just as much business as it is fitness. Number two, much more of a training idea. 8 years ago, I had just finished. So summer of 2009, I had just finished my senior year in college. I had won 2 NAIA national championships in the shot put, throwing at just about 64 feet, 19.46 meters. I was looking at, what to do with my training going forward, and I trained in a much different way than I do now. I trained, West Side style, conjugate style of training, bands, chains, special bars, all that stuff, box jumps, and I was incredibly powerful. I was incredibly explosive. My senior year of college weighed 290 pounds, had a 35.5-inch vertical, ran in the 4.6s on the 40 on a laser timing, broad jumped about 10 feet 6 inches. That made me very, very powerful. The sport I played was not the sport of how much weight can you lift, how high can you jump, how fast can you run. It was how far can you throw this ball. And the two real eye-opening moments to me were as I was there, 22, 23 years old, benching 500, a ballistic style 500-pound bench with this 36-inch vertical to go with it. I could stand throw about 58, 59 feet at that point. And I remember seeing a chart about Reese Hoffa, a great, phenomenal shot putter, and made by his coach Don Babbitt at the University of Georgia, and it tracked all of Reese's testing results, like on his lifts and his jumps and general throws, and then his throwing results, stand throw, different weights, and full throws. And it went from when he was 18 to when he was 26. And I believe at 26 years old, he threw something like 22.43 meters, like 74 feet, just about. And I remember looking at that and looking at the results in everything, this whole big chart. And I was like, well, I can jump higher, I can jump farther, I can run faster, I can overhead backwards farther, I can stand throw farther, and bench more, squat more, clean more, everything more. Except the one thing that mattered. I couldn't throw the shot put as far, when we do the whole thing and spin around in the circle. And so that, and then coming out of college, I had a contemporary, guy I had never heard of at the time, by the name of Justin Rody, and he went to Mount Union. And this in 2009, I believe Justin Rody threw like 1780. Let's say 58 feet. And even that one I know was a pretty big PR for him. He was more like a 56-foot shot putter, and I'm throwing 64 feet. And that's in 2009. And then in 2012, I'm running Juggernaut, which I love and is great, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else. But I stopped throwing the shot put in 2010 because I was still throwing, 64, and I was also working 60 to 70 hours a week. But then fast forward to 2012, And 56-foot Justin Rody has now thrown 69 feet and is going to the Olympics for Canada. And I'm like, what the hell happened here? And Justin Rody had moved to Kamloops in British Columbia and trained with Anatoly Bondarchuk, Dr. Bondarchuk. You know, the father, the godfather of these special strength ideas and throwing overweight shots and really high frequency specific training with very de-emphasized general qualities, where I was incredibly, gifted and had really high results in the general exercises, lifting, jumping, general throws. I mean, the stand throw would be more specific, but Justin Rody had everything that I didn't have, pretty much. He was benching 405, 425, and throwing 69 feet. And, well, I just didn't have that half of things. And that really made it click for me because I'd heard about Dr. Bondarchuk and James Smith had talked to me about him. And I was just like, I can't do that stuff. Like, I'm going to lose my edge, my big jumping and big power. But looking back, the way I trained, though it made me very successful up to a point, I would change so many things about it looking back because, let's say in 2012, I would have been 26 years old. That sounds right. Yeah, 26 years old. And, and I stopped throwing when I was 23, or let's say when I was really throwing my best, I think when I was 22, and I wasn't working so much with the Juggernaut stuff. With 4 extra years of development at that point, I could have still gotten as strong and jumped as high, but by doing it with this understanding specificity and what really related to my sporting result, I could have, going back to high school, put so much more emphasis to throwing, to technique, to special strength exercises, and brought along the strength, the general strength qualities and explosive qualities a little bit slower. And, at 26, 27, 28, probably would have ended up still benching, 500, squatting 700 with these big jumps, but now would have had a ton of great technique and a ton of throws under my belt when I got there instead of, the special strength qualities, which I just lacked and I think become harder and harder to develop as you get older and older.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think for Max, the specificity is almost the other side.
Yeah, the opposite side of that.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started lifting, there was essentially zero effort devoted to the general qualities. No general training done. Very, very, very narrow band of choices for exercise selection. I mean, 5-6 exercises. Total. Yeah. Complete arsenal. 6 exercises. No variety, no variation in loading, no real overload, no progressive overload because nothing ever changed in intensity. Volumes never changed, but everything was identical to the sport form. So maximum snatch and clean and jerk, really, really high frequency, but no real structure, no general stuff. Nothing was devoted to building any kind of foundation, and ultimately that led to me being a completely one-dimensional lifter that had, I excelled in the areas I was physically capable of excelling, the squatting, but the rest of it, the snatch, clean, jerk, the results just did not justify the means, or the means didn't justify the result didn't justify the means. So, that was like, if I went back to it, looking at it from Chad's perspective, I would have done way more the opposite. I would have spent those first 6-8 years developing basic skills, the athletic stuff, all the general training, way more general training. I would still have done some specific stuff in the skill practice because the technique aspect, even went down the tubes because the training was just too much. But I would have spent way more time on general stuff, and just follow the actual progression and structure of a pretty sound training model. I would have achieved way bigger results, and by the end, I probably would have been just as strong anywhere had I done that, like you were saying, where you probably end at the same point, but with a better result in the sport you're actually competing in. So
I think the big takeaway there, specificity is the most important thing. It's the most important thing to understand about training, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah.
So it's all important, but it all has its place. So understand what your goal is, what your athlete's goals are, and let specificity create the framework in which your decisions are made. But don't think, that they said specificity is the most important. That's all I'm doing, because then you get
get this.
And
Pretty to look at, but it doesn't do a lot.
Lesson number 3 is to care about what the right people think. Yeah. You hear people say, well, I don't care about what anyone thinks, or don't care about what anyone thinks, just do you. And it's like, no, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who it's not worth caring about what they think.
Yeah.
But there is also a lot of people it is worth caring about what they think. And so creating, a group of people to surround yourself with, as cliche as it may sound, that you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, something like that. That's a saying, I think.
There it is. The sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with becomes you.
Yeah. Being very selective about those people and having, whether it's a mentor type of relationship or just people that you trust around you and that you respect around you to give you honest feedback, criticisms, to tell you when you're fucking up, to tell you when you're doing something great. You need to have those people in your life. You can't be listening to what everyone says, because then it's just too much noise.
Yeah.
But to think that you're just going to do whatever you want and not consider the opinions of anyone else would be foolish. It is definitely worth listening to the opinions of others. Just make sure you're being very strategic and selective about who those people are.
Yeah, you have to surround yourself with people that can give you criticism that's constructive, and that's easy to find yes men, and just people that will agree with everything you say, or they just think alike, and they don't want to be critical in their thinking or their sort of assessments of your stuff or what you need. You surround yourself with people that actually can give you good critical feedback that you can do something with. That's huge. Surrounding yourself with people that are completely one-sided, that have nothing to offer, is going to be. That's not good. You're just going to get stuck in this place where you're never actually developing anything. You just get dogmatic in what you do, and then you end up trapped in 10 years and have to redo everything from there. That's a good one.
Lesson number 4 is to be proactive, not reactive. And this is going to be, in training, in business, that, one kind of big moment in my own training career was herniating 2 discs in my back in the summer of 2013. I was kicking ass in my training. Up to that point, I'd squat 900 pounds. I became a professional strongman. In the first 5 months of 2013, did my first pro strongman show, then squatted 700 for 10 in the animal cage, then did a powerlifting meet up at Supertrain, then did a Giants Live strongman show qualifier, and then made a PR total at another powerlifting meet out in Kentucky. And then about a month later, I popped my back. And I remember in that time, it would have been, I think, that February of that year, I was in Kentucky at Derby City CrossFit Dark Side Strength with Ryan Brown, and Ryan was trying to show me, these different breathing drills and stuff, and then and I'm kind of shrugging him off like, this is,
I breathe fine. I breathe short, shallow, fast.
Physical therapy, pussy bullshit. And then a couple months after that was the first time I met Quinn. It was actually the day after I made the PR total at a meet in Kentucky. He was doing a seminar out there, and I met him, and they were doing the breathing stuff again, and I was still I'm fucking invincible. I don't need to learn about this stuff. And then a month later, when I, popped those discs, I'm getting people on the phone so what was that breathing stuff you guys were talking about back then? And so I had to react to this injury, where if I could rewind several months and take a little bit of time and learn, put my ego aside and learn that stuff, maybe I could have prevented that injury. And that's why I always tell people that learning how to breathe and learning those drills is some of the most profound improvement in my training and my wellness and my movement, everything that I've learned really since I began powerlifting.
Yeah. That's a huge one.
And I think on the business side of things, I've dealt with this one a couple times, and it kind of goes along with this proactive, not reactive. If you know you're going to do something, you know you're going to make some change in the business, and you're just kind of waiting and biding your time to do it, 9 times out of 10 with it, I don't think there's a point in waiting. If you know you're going to do it eventually, and these are usually hard, uncomfortable decisions, just fucking do it now. Like, don't prolong it, because it's just going to hang over your head. It's going to create negative energy in your business. So get out in front of those problems and eliminate them early, rather than letting them fester and having to react to it later and clean up whatever mess is created by it.
If you ever shower, brush your teeth, or try to make your hair look presentable, and hopefully you do all of those things, I've got good news for you. Dollar Shave Club has a lot of stuff to help you out. Even though I'm generally pretty well bearded, they have a lot of other stuff. My favorite is the Calming Amber Lavender Body Cleanser, and they have everything you need to help you get ready in the bathroom. Dollar Shave Club, yes, Dollar Shave Club delivers everything you need to look, feel, and smell your best. You name it. Shampoo, conditioner, body wash, toothpaste, hair gel, even a wipe that will leave your tush feeling tingly clean. All the Dollar Shave Club products are made with top shelf ingredients that won't break your budget, and you'll feel the difference. Plus, shipping is included with your membership. Here's a great way to try a bunch of Dollar Shave Club products for just $5. You can get their Daily Essential Starter Set. Comes with body cleanser, One Wipe Charlie's, their amazing butt wipes, their world famous shave butter, and their best razor, the 6-blade Executive. Keep the blades coming for just a few more bucks a month. Add in shampoo, toothpaste, or anything else you need for the bathroom. Check it all out at dollarshaveclub.com/JuggLife. That's dollarshaveclub.com/JuggLife.
From a business perspective, being proactive rather than reactive is really big, because a lot of times you're making choices that you don't want to make. Mm-hmm. It's not that they're hard choices. My father once gave me really great advice. He said, the only hard choices you ever have to make in life are between 2 bad things. And so when you know there's a good outcome, even though it's really uncomfortable to have to say, hey, this change, that change, you're so much better off doing it as soon as possible, because then you have the most time to make the necessary steps to keep going with everything. But I mean, in running gyms or any kind of business, you're always in a place where you have to put the business in front of a lot of other things, and that can be a challenge, right? And that can also mean, you putting the business in front of your passion, where your passion is to, I'm going to coach people this way or that way, or I'm going to do this or that. Like, there's concessions that need to be made, because if you don't have a business, you can't do the thing you're doing. You can't help people if your business falls apart and then you're stuck working at Starbucks or something. So I think it's really important to understand that being proactive and making those choices, whether they're uncomfortable or not, sooner rather than later, and being aggressive about stepping out in front of situations.
Yeah, and then kind of my last point on this one, it goes to the effect of planning. There's definitely decisions that I've had to make in the last 8 years that were decisions for the short term. I was having to react to a whatever situation it was in the short term, basically making decisions that were like, I need to pay the bills this month, especially a year in, 2 years, 3 years in. I got to pay the bills this month, so I need to do this thing that's good in the short term to do that, but isn't my long-term vision for things. Yeah. So being able to, if I could go back in time and lay out all these plans in advance and be proactive about my strategizing for everything, I hopefully wouldn't have had to make those sort of reactive short-term decisions. So that's lesson number 4: be proactive, not reactive. Number 5, and these are in no particular order, is about valuing process orientation over goal orientation. And setting goals and that stuff is great. Whether that's a weight that you want to lift, a time that you want to finish something in, amount of traffic you want to get on your website, amount of revenue you want to generate. Those goals are worth having. But just saying, all right, I'm going to get 100,000 hits on my website in 6 months, and right now I get 10,000, without focusing on the process by which you can improve things to to create better content, which is going to drive more traffic, and then you can drive more traffic, which is going to generate more sales for you and generate more sales, and that's going to allow you to create better content without focusing on that part of the process. Just I want to get 100,000, visitors is a losing proposition, and a losing proposition as well in training.
Yeah, for sure. And training is really big because, and that's, I learned this kind of the hard way. It was training literally from like day one of training. When I started weightlifting, it was like the Olympics. That's the goal. And you lose sight of, well, let's get better at lifting today. Like let's set up a plan so that in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks, we've accomplished a few simple things. We've gotten better at them, and here's how we're going to do it. We're going to follow these few little steps every day. We're going to set forth in a way that we can maintain training and follow along with, recovering, making progress, getting better, rather than you're snatching 70 kilos right now, and the Olympic Games is 2016, so, figure out a map because you got to get there. You just set yourself up for failure by focusing on the end result. And like in business too, it's if you're fixated on I got to make this much money, that's nothing. You're just setting yourself up to have the feeling of failure all the time.
Yeah, and the goal is just a moment. That
right.
is one moment of existence of achieving or failing. The process is never ending. So I told people, for lifting, if your goal is to put 50 kilos on your squat, okay, that's all well and good. But that tends to be such a daunting task that people cannot conceptualize how to get there. But if your goal is, how can I put 2.5 kilos more on the bar, for squat, bench, and deadlift? How can I put 1 kilo more on the bar for weightlifting? The smallest increment possible, and all the different areas of improvement that you could make for that, from technique, nutrition, recovery, mental preparation, the design of the training plan, and you can focus on all of those, which are all part of this never-ending process of improvement in whatever it is. You can find these areas for whatever goals you have. Being able to focus on small improvements in all of those is what is going to cumulatively add up to the goal result. So be process oriented, not goal oriented. Embrace that never ending, ebb and flow of how all this stuff goes, and you're going to be much more successful in reaching the goals you have than by just putting your attention towards the end result.
Yeah, the do or die everyday scenario that's not how you get far.
Number 6, again, this is a training one and a business life one, is know when to push and know when to pull back.
Yeah.
From a training standpoint, for me, I don't know if I've learned this lesson yet, but I'm at least aware of its importance. Talking back to the herniated disc, I was strong, I was lifting big weights, I was winning contests, I was push. Where in those first 5 months of 2013, I said I did LA Fit Expo was my first pro strongman show. So that's like mid to late January. And then maybe 5 weeks later, I went to the Arnold, squat 700 for 10 in the animal cage. And then 4 weeks later, 3 or 4 weeks later in late March, went up to Super Training and did a meet there. Did you do that meet?
Yeah, I was there.
Then in mid to late April, went out to Las Vegas, did a Giants Live qualifier that Nick Best ran. And then in mid to late May, went to Kentucky and did a USPA meet and made a total PR at that one. But what I had really gotten into at that point was did the Fit Expo. I took 2 to 4 kind of easy recovery days. Then I trained hard for 2.5 weeks. Then I tapered for a week. Then I did the big squat at the Arnold. Then I took a couple days easy. Then I trained hard for 2.5, 3 weeks, and then I tapered for a week, and then did the next meet, and then the next show, and then the next meet, and then the next show, and surprise, surprise, I fucking hurt myself at the end.
That's
like,
so odd.
Yeah, like looking back on it, of course. And I've made the same mistake with powerlifting, in the last 2 years. If you watch a video I had probably 16 months ago at this time called Totally Raw and Enjoying Training, it talks about more or less the same process for me, that I had a meet, I lifted well. I mean, I made my PR total 23.25. It wasn't as much as I think I could have lifted that day, but then I was like, all right, I could have done more, so let's get ready, and we're going to do another meet. I had done that meet in early November, and I was like, all right, I'm going to turn around and do LA Fit Expo in January. And then I train hard for a little bit, and then it's like, oh, this hurts, and this isn't quite healthy from the meet, and then I keep getting beat up, and all right, well, I'll push back and do one a couple of weeks later. And then you just get hurt, or you're just lifting shitty because stuff feels bad. And then when I'm lifting shitty, I'm just like, fuck this, I don't want to lift at all. It's only fun to lift when I'm lifting a lot.
No, I'm the same. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
So then it's this time of being disillusioned, and then, all right, now I got to take 3 steps back and do all this different training and enjoy it. Where now, and then I did the same thing again a year later, the exact same thing. Where if I would have just been like, okay, that meet didn't go perfect. I did make 1,055 kilo total.
Yeah.
So it's not the worst bad day. But if I would have just done that and then said, all right, I take 2 months after a meet to make sure I'm healthy, to do some fun, kind of fuck around training. We could have been doing a meet a big meet every 6 months like that, rather than this one big one a year kind of deal with all sort of up and down frustrations in between.
Yeah.
So if I would have just understood more the importance of downtime and the importance of, I guess to our previous point, the process could have been better off in that regard. And I think you've definitely, in the last 18 months of being here, have to, I don't know if you've had any downtime, but the theoretical importance of downtime.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot to be said. Like from a training standpoint, like when you are on, it's like kind of having your fingers on the pulse of what's happening. And when you have experience as a coach, it's different, because as a coach you're watching people, and there's total objectivity, so you don't have a sense of like, I mean, you want to push somebody harder. Oh, let's do another kilo or 2 or this or that. But keeping people back in this sort of like just a little bit before where it's too much. And then you have this like margin to play with as you're training and pushing people. And that knowing sort of the balance of pushing too much or pulling back. That's such a huge. It's so big to know what's right and what's wrong there as a coach or as an athlete. From a standpoint of like the work-life balance, it's like when you know all the people at the Southwest Gate by name, and you've seen them like 45 times this year, you got to decide, okay, where's the balance there? But I mean, that's a really tough one, because I think a lot of us that are driven, I mean, you get to be a very highly, highly motivated person to do what Chad's done or what a lot of people have done in this kind of stuff, because that's not a normal level of motivation. That's above and beyond what people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's arguments for sure that can be made from both sides. Like, you could find what you love and let it kill you kind of deal, but.
Well, it's tough because as a really highly motivated person, you're trying to fight and push for it. And if that combination can work, I think if you have an understanding of the process versus goal orientation, because if you work very, very hard at the process, you achieve really, really good things at the end of that. If you are highly motivated but you focus only on the goal, you're going to end up becoming the example would be the lifter who goes in and doesn't have a good day and sits on the floor crying and whines about, well, I missed that lift, or I missed this. Like, you're going to end suicide, right? Versus, if you have that motivation and you push and push and push on the process rather than the goal, you're going to end up, good things happen. The steps are taken to make progress. Anybody can sit there and say, oh, it's too much or it's too hard. It's tough, though, because as a person, you have to also have a balance in life, because guess what? Like, you walk out of the gym, there's a normal world out there, and there's a lot of really awesome, fantastic things in the world that you should be doing and trying and experiencing. And, you don't want to neglect that for the sake of, any one endeavor, right?
Yeah. All right, lesson number 7 is having a white belt mentality. Ironically enough, is immediately after we finish this, I am going to go to a pajama wrestling class. Some others call that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Nick Shaw of Renaissance Spiritization calls it blowjob job. But I'll literally be a white belt.
Does he do jiu-jitsu?
No, he just likes to make fun of Mike.
Yeah, I couldn't see him doing it.
Yeah. Now, Nick doesn't leave his house for anything.
Yeah.
He's a total hermit.
He has a gym in there now, so he's just can't have to leave.
Him and Mike,
he won't even leave the basement.
Yeah, him and Mike went to the CrossFit Games. They were probably there for tops 36 hours.
Oh my God.
I mean, they were at weightlifting nationals, like Saturday
they were.
afternoon to Sunday night. Yeah. Maybe to Sunday morning. But so going into something with a white belt mentality, meaning going towards it, knowing that you don't know everything, and I think some of that is what has allowed me to really broaden the Juggernaut brand with people like Max, with people like Dr. Mike Isertel and Nick Shaw, with people like Dr. Quinn Hannock, that I don't try and pretend that I know everything about weightlifting and movement, and obviously not nutrition. I mean, besides massing, which I'm the master, but the
massing and masturbation, is that a lifestyle?
It definitely is. But being able to set your ego aside and learn from people around you, being able to look at situations, and I'm guilty of not doing this part of things, but not throwing the baby out with the bathwater on stuff where it's like, yeah, maybe I don't agree with almost everything that this person says, and there's a lot of people that both of us don't agree with almost everything they say, but maybe
Maybe Shorty can put a graphic, a list of names scrolling down here.
That's going to be like the fucking intro to Star Wars. But being able to take, one kernel out of that stuff and just be always open to learning more and being accepting of others' ideas, at least listening to it without, dismissing it out of hand. But
for sure, that's a huge one. I think that for me that applies a lot to, like, no matter what level you think you get to, if you always take the approach that you're never above any job, right? If you're, I'm sure that Mark Zuckerberg's not going out and scrubbing the toilets at Facebook, but it wouldn't be. I mean, maybe he's the worst example, but there's a lot of business owners that are very, very successful that would not believe they're above doing those things. Whatever it is, it's their business, it's their training, and whatever it is, you're never above being at the bottom again. And if you're always okay with that, you're going to learn so much because you have a chance to actually start over and learn again, right? I think that's a huge one. There's a lot of people that will quickly dismiss what anyone's done. I could start my own brand, or I could do this or that. Like, you're going to put yourself in a place where you're just dismissing every mistake and all the labor and time and energy that went into it, and you believe that you've already figured out the secret, and so you don't need to do you don't need to clean the toilets, you don't need to take out the trash, you don't got to do the basic stuff because, well, I figured out how they did it. I'm just going to copy that and do that. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge mistake to not have that mentality.
So much of that kind of stuff too, I think, being an entrepreneur is truly being an owner of something, taking ownership of what you do, making those kind of investments and doing all that shit. Because I remember at this time 8 years ago, being in this warehouse and 8 hours the first day of just fucking mopping dust off or scrubbing dust off of all the beams in it, because it had previously been like a tile warehouse that they cut tile in, and then painting the walls, installing the flooring, installing the turf, setting up the equipment, every single part of that. I mean, that was everything became so much more valuable then because
I can only imagine too, like all the times, like I mean, like picking up equipment, finding deals, buying stuff, moving it around, installing shit. I mean, I've been 3 or 4 different gyms, places where it's like, okay, it's like lay the rubber down, like for the 5th time, like is another remodel, another this, another that. There's always that stuff, Yeah.
And then our final lesson, and this one I've have a video, probably 3 or 4 year old video now, and an article by the same title, but this one's always going to be true, and it's about having the courage to be great. And the story came from we're at a seminar in Australia, and I'm not one for the rah-rah and the motivational, but this was definitely one that hit me in those kind of feels, and it was probably delirious from the travel, but this kid was talking about wanting to start his PhD program and stuff, and we're asking him, what was his motivation for doing it, and it took what seemed like minutes for him to sort of meekly choke out this idea of I want to be great at this, and the idea to me that he just couldn't stand up and fucking yell it that he wanted to do this PhD program because he wanted to be great at something was so troubling, and then taking a step back and looking at how many people feel that way, that it's so much easier to not pursue the big the big deal, the big whatever, the big goal, because it's so much easier to go for the status quo, to not put yourself out there, to not take the chance, because with that, with the bigger the goal, the bigger the chance for failure with it is, and the bigger the goal, the more people who are going to tell you that you can't do it, that that it's not a possible thing for you to do. That so many people that they never take it, they don't have the courage to try and pursue that greatness in their life, whether that's a training goal, whether that's an education goal, a business goal, a life goal, whatever it is that you are passionate about. I implore you to go for it, to take all the other things we said into account. And I think a really big one that relates here is care about what the right people think, not the people who are telling you you're full of shit and you can't do it or whatever, unless the right people are actually telling you that, and maybe you find a different goal.
You're not going to play in the NBA.
Yeah, but that you chase that big goal so relentlessly and so courageously, because if you're not going after it, what the fuck else are you going to do?
Yeah, why even do it? I don't know if I could say that any better. That's pretty spot on. I'm pretty fired up right now, actually.
Pretty motivational type of guy.
That's pretty good. I think that's, that's it. There's not much more to say there.
All right. So those 8 lessons from the last 8 years, celebrating 8 years of juggernauting here in September 1st, 2009. Open the doors.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Wow.
It's much, much different now than I would have expected 8 years ago. That's for sure.
Imagine, yeah.
Yeah. Would have never thought that people were going to be like, oh, hey, do you want to come to a different country to teach me how to
That's pretty cool.
lift weights, or that tens of thousands, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions around the world. Maybe not millions, but dozens at least.
We haven't got the numbers in from India yet, but it could be big.
But yeah, so thank you to all of you for the support for any part of the last 8 years that you've been supporting, and those who don't support, no, that's fine. You're missing out. But
you got to surround yourself with different people. They're telling you the wrong stuff.
We've got some clinics coming up. You guys can go to the events section at store.jtsstrength.com to find out about those. This weekend we will be in Buffalo, September, Philadelphia, later September, Santa Barbara, then upstate New York, and October 28th, I will be in Minneapolis, various clinics there. If those locations sounded interesting to you, along with the pointing, which some of you weren't privy to, go check that out, store.jtsstrength.com under events. If you're interested in our online coaching services for powerlifting, weightlifting, super total, multiple different levels and options for each of those, visit juggernautcoaching.com. Subscribe to our YouTube. We're always proud of the content we produce here. And if you enjoy the podcast, go on iTunes, give us a 5-star review. That really helps us with the rankings and helps more people find this information, which we are very happy to produce and very, very proud of what we do here. You can also find us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and thejugglife.com. Max, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram, Max_Ada, or on Facebook, or email me, max@jtsstrength.com.
And I'm Chad Wesley Smith, at Chad Wesley Smith and at Juggernaut Training on Facebook and Instagram, filling up your news feed all day. JuggLife fans and listeners and watchers, thank you very much. We will see you next week.